Hello everybody and welcome back to Pathfinder Plays, and today we are going to be taking a look at the Dead Matter forums to look at some Dead Matter discussions. Let's begin. So I came across this discussion by a new member named Bojang, and it's titled Why Every Online Survival Game Dies, or How to Keep Survival Games Alive. Now, with the dawning and or delays of Dead Matter, a lot of backers and possible future players are worried about the state of the game, and if it releases, will it even survive? And so he is asking a very good question, and he says, what do you think is the main reason most of the online survival games die? Which they do. Now, I wouldn't say the games he's listing are necessarily dead. DayZ obviously is not dead, but it's not nearly as popular as it could be. Miscreated, I have no idea. I've never played it, and maybe that brings validity to his point. But he says that DayZ has base building, PvE and PvP, crafting, but it doesn't have missions, dynamic events, and new content, which of course they just released the new map. But let's be real here, the game's been out since 2013, and comparatively to the time spent trying to make the current vanilla game work, you might as well not release any content, because most people prefer Trinaris anyways. And then he says Miscreated has base building, PvP, PvE, crafting, dynamic weather effects, and events, but it doesn't have missions. And he says he couldn't talk about Scum, but I know somebody down below does talk about Scum. And then he says he doesn't know why, but Rust seems to be the most successful game out there, even though it's mainly a PvP game and doesn't focus on survival gameplay. So it's a pretty interesting question, pretty interesting examples. Let's see what everybody has to say. Borj Mistre, assuming that's how you say his name, brings up Conan Exiles, and he says that the game has base building, PvE, PvP with a strong emphasis on lore and roleplay, which a lot of people in the survival community love. Crafting and cooking, dynamic weather effects and events, dungeons, and a thrall system, which is breaking any human into slavery for better crafting and for defending yourself. That's a fascinating concept. And he says there's tons of props for decoration, a good amount of armor, as well as aesthetic combinations with dye. And he says what kept it alive during the worst time of the game about a year ago was strong private community built around various rules, setting adjustments, modding that minimized bugs and game-breaking issues. And this is actually all very true, because though Conan Exiles has had its fair of issues, very rarely will you hear somebody actually talking trash on the game itself, and that just goes to show you they must be doing something right. It is an online survival game. And if we go to the Steam page, we can clearly see that all reviews are showing mostly positive. 76% of 36,000 people who have went through the trouble of leaving a user review have left it positive. Recent reviews, the 1,200 people, 82% of the 1,200 people in the last 30 days have made it very positive. They've been doing something right, and honestly, people should probably look at Conan Exiles as a correct metric on how to do online survival gaming right. Kanavlov says, for me, this is what I personally think makes a good zombie survival game. Looting, scavenging, the number one thing that drives my interest is loot. The next house could have something epic. You never know, and that is absolutely true. It's that unknown that makes survival games both exhilarating and worth it. Looting physical items is cool, looting chests, cabinets, cool, but I like looting stationary items just for that little attention to detail. The game must have these. Single player mode, so I can play by myself in my own world, which I would just add to that single player mode, it should not require online connectivity, which that may be implied to some people, but some games out there, they have a single player option, but they won't allow you to access it unless you have an internet connection. Co-op mode, playing with my wife together in our own world, that would be adorable. Private multiplayer server, playing with friends online. Public and community multiplayer, PvE, PvP, and playing in a PvP server is risk versus reward. I absolutely agree with all of these. Every game should have these settings. Why would they not? He says he loves finding weapons but not crafting weapons, which I would agree, it's not realistic and it kind of takes away from the immersion of it. If you're playing a survival game, there's an element of roleplay that you want to have. I love dynamic weather and especially rain. He says that he once fell asleep in a game when it started to thunder and rain, It sounded so realistic. Well, I would like to know that freaking game, sir. I love making or finding ammo and to manually load magazines with bullets. I also love that. What's not to love? More immersion. Plus the sound of loading ammo into a magazine. Sounds so good. He says building a base or to take over a base to store loot and call home. I'm not necessarily a proponent for building bases as long as they're not super extravagant, but I know that I am in a small niche community who doesn't prefer building bases. There's plenty of people, probably more so, who enjoy the ability to let their imaginations soar as long as they're able to put it into work to make it happen. But that's fine. A ton of clothing choices. Survival players love to see themselves look cool, and they also love to affect people's perception of them, and this is where clothing comes in. Gear, armor, vests, backpacks, helmets, civilian clothing as well. These are all important for how your character looks, how people perceive you, role-playing opportunities, and also if that gear has any special benefits such as being slash-proof, knife-proof, rain-resistant, water-resistant, warms your character. Clothing should obviously be super expansive in survival games. He brings up the ability to play male and female characters with unique cosmetics, of course. Because once again, a survival game kind of inherently entails a bit of roleplay. Both first person and third person. I would say that I agree that games should generally have both, but they should make it a toggle for server admins to turn on or off either or if they want to. I don't think it's nice playing in a server that gives both because it gives unfair advantages during gunfights, especially for those people who don't know that you can toggle through first person and third person. Unless, of course, it's a game that forces you into first person whenever you aim down sights. Now, we also mentioned something very important, having just the right balance of weapons and ammo. Not to be starved of weapons and ammo, not to be overloaded with weapons and ammo. It is a careful balance, which a lot of games get dreadfully wrong. It shouldn't take the community, it shouldn't take a private server, it shouldn't take modders to get this right, and yet usually it does. I'm not sure what the deal is with developers being able to create glorious worlds and yet not being able to comprehend what proper balances should be for ammo and weapons. It's always the modders and admin and server owners that actually get it right. Able to use your weapons in everyday combat without having to worry about rationing ammo like in Resident Evil 1. I mean, I agree, Resident Evil 1 is really brutal, but I also think that you shouldn't need to ration your ammo. It shouldn't be freaking Call of Duty, you know, where you don't have to worry about anything. You should have to worry about your ammo. That should be a very real and persistent threat, but it shouldn't be the #1 threat. Finding rare and exotic weapons in dangerous places. I mean, of course, who wouldn't want that? You go somewhere dangerous. In Dead Matter, it will be things like the Nera camps, right? You go to a Nera camp, you find great medical equipment. You go down to the bunkers, you're going to find exotic and unique weapons like that. Who knows, maybe you find that key card and you go into the police station. You're going to find some good weapons and gear there. It's going to be great. Every game that's survival should have those. And this is a big one, having someone else to shoot at other than zombies. NPC mercenaries, I feel like another NPC element to the zombie genre could keep you on your toes a lot more. I would say Dead Matter is seeking to do this right, because they obviously have these zombies, but I also know that they are trying to really implement the faction system and the NPC system in the game to make it a really filled world. And if they are able to do that, it's going to be quite the treat. Able to drive and acquire vehicles, of course. Weapon modifications, of course. That's the one thing that Deadside did terribly. They didn't have scopes for their guns, no attachments for their weapons hardly. And yeah, that makes gunfights not too fun. He says that survival games love us being able to eat and drink, but I don't like anything too crazy where you can't enjoy the game because you're searching for water every 10 minutes. I absolutely agree. I really do. And I understand that the in-game world is moving faster time-wise than in the real world. Therefore, 10 minutes in real life may actually be like an hour in-game or something like that. I get it. But it's still 10 minutes. And it's still tedious, and it's not fun, and it makes your character look like a little soy boy who can't survive longer than 10 minutes without eating something or drinking something. And it makes you wonder, how were you one of the 1,000 people to survive the apocalypse? How? You can't even walk out your front door without grabbing some chips. And then he says, if you die, you at least have a chance to get to your body and acquire your gear before it vanishes. Yeah, maybe. Because though I would appreciate that from a game, and I would definitely take advantage of it, it also kind of gets rid of the risk-reward, I think, you know? That tension that you get from dying or from the risk of dying, because if you have the chance to just get it back, it would be a strange thing to try to balance. Like, what would that chance, as he says, what would that chance look like? Would it spawn you within a certain location? Would it give you a beacon on your death and spawn you forever away? What would it do? Would it make your body unlootable to other people for a certain amount of time? I'm not quite sure, but I know the way Dead Matter wants to do it is that you can go and get your stuff back, and if you die via zombie, you'll spawn within a certain proximity of that zombie, which is actually your dead body, which is currently decked out in all your garb that you were wearing before, and you have to kill yourself in order to get your stuff back. And that's probably the best way that I have seen people do it, and I can't wait to actually try that. But the conversation goes on, guys. This guy says right here, talking about my dream survival game. I mean, it's true. I mean, that would make a fantastic survival game. And I do believe that Dead Matter is trying to accommodate most of what he's doing here. Obviously not the third person. They already made a ruckus with that. But in terms of ammo and gun scarcity, in terms of getting your gear back, yes, that's there. But I mean, we're just gonna have to wait and see, right? That's all there is to it. So I'll probably end up going back on here looking for some stuff, looking for some discussions that are relevant to Dead Matter and some really important questions. The conversation goes on. I'll link the forum here to this conversation in the description below, so if you guys want to read more of it, check it out. But I just thought this was a really important question to ask and talk about in terms of what makes a survival game live, because Dead Matter is important to us, and I know this, and it's really important to a lot of you. So if there's anything we can do to help it survive, if there's anything the developers need to do to help it survive, it's good that we all talk about it as a community. That being said, I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you for stopping by, and if you guys like scares, survival, and scavenging, consider hitting that subscribe button, hitting that share button, that like button, get involved in the discussion, and I will see you in the next one. Path out.